Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Fact or Cap Paranormal Files. My name is Wes, and in this series, we dive into videos from across the web and decide whether or not they are fake or real. Why take my opinion? I've been doing this for 15, 20 years, exploring the paranormal, exploring the weird and unusual, and, I've stayed pretty dang straight and arrow with it, as in I don't justify every little thing to be paranormal. I really need some hard evidence if I'm going to be swayed one way or the other. So, with that being said, we are going to take a little break from our ghost videos and our Nukes Top 5 videos, and we're going to move over to some best UFO sightings of 2023 so far. Now, I'm a big UFO alienologist guy. I follow all the news. I've been following the court cases, Grush, and the whole entire whistleblowers, and the new idea that the UFOs are coming from our ocean potentially, or that they are interdimensional beings and it's not from outer space. And I've always been fascinated with it due to the fact that my father and I actually had a really we still just we talk about it every few months, but we saw something that we just really can't explain. Both of us are pretty he's an educated man. I'm an educated guy. Like we don't really, how do I say it? Like we don't really expect and believe everything we hear without physical proof. And we saw something, and we ever since that day it's kind of been UFO studying and trying to figure out what it is that we saw. And some of the newer news has really explained potentially what we have seen, and why it was so unusual what was going on with what we noticed. But that's for a different video. I've talked about it, I'm sure, on this channel a handful of times already. But without further ado, we're going to dive into these videos. I believe the channel is AFO. I will be putting a link below to this video if you don't want to hear me talking over it, which is completely fine. If you do, hang out, share your opinion, let me know what you think, and let's jump into this shit.
Recorded from a doorbell camera in Sunrise, Florida, three lights float as more or less an equilateral triangle before separating.
Oh, yeah, that's pretty crazy.
What is assumed to be the same event by a different witness was also captured.
You cannot tell me.
By speeding the footage up, the synced and fluid motion between the objects becomes even more apparent. It almost looks as if they are attached together in some way. They make an almost perfect rotation as one. This illustration helps us to comprehend the physics-breaking movements of the UFOs documented by the DoD.
At 13,000
Okay, let's pause on that and let's talk about what's going on here. That's pretty crazy. One of the things that's always been talked about is flying saucers, triangles, and now it's pills, right? Pills are kind of the new thing. So I'm just trying to think of anything that would be triangle shape. I mean, because that's sped up too, right? So like we're seeing the sped up version in the second half, so it's pretty slow going. So unless it's very far away, which I doubt it, like it would be like so many people would have saw this if it was way up in the sky. I mean, everything, and one thing that I've noticed that I've done in this series that maybe I want to move away from is just explaining everything off of it. It's just edited, because I kind of use that excuse for a lot of things, and I feel like it's not really adding too much to the video, in the sense of like, well, yeah, that could be easily edited, and it's like, well, yeah, no shit, everyone thinks that now. Like, it doesn't really add to the explaining of it. But weather balloons don't move like this. Hot air balloons wouldn't act like this. The only thing that we have that you wouldn't be able to see, and you might see some lights flicker at night, would be the silent bombers. And that's not that. I mean, I think that they're longer across than they are triangle. That looks almost like a perfect triangle. I don't know, man. That's a good video to start out with. That definitely could be a UFO.
This illustration helps us to comprehend the physics-breaking movements of the UFOs documented by the DoD.
At 13,000 miles an hour and change directions instantly. We fly the SR-71 at 3,200 miles an hour. If you wanted to take a right-hand turn, it would take you roughly half the state of Ohio to do it. And yet what we're seeing are objects that can do 90-degree turns instantly.
The amount of G's exerted after a turn like this would instantly destroy any occupants 10 times over, along with vaporizing the craft.
And we're not talking about speeds of 3,200 miles an hour. They've been clocked at over 13,000.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing that we have to really take into consideration with some of these UFOs that we're seeing. And you know, it's funny, right? Because the mainstream thought process now for people who've been researching UFOs is like, we're past the point of it being real or fake, right? Like, UFOs are happening. The government's confirmed it. Multiple governments have confirmed it. People are confirming it. So now the conversation has moved to, what are they? Which I really feel like that went under the radar, no pun intended, pretty hastily, because I feel like even in the mid 2010s, it was still kind of a conversation of, well, I mean, we're pretty sure they exist, but like, are they here? We doubt it. To now it's like, oh, they're here and they're observable and they have been for a long time. And now we're talking like, what are they? Are they from outer space? Are they interdimensional? Are they from the ocean? Is it something completely different that we don't understand? Like, are they here and now? Like, it it's now getting even more convoluted. Hmm. That one does seem a little bit more. It's eerie that it's just sitting there and kind of moving. Oh, it's gone.
Recorded over Hungary. Footage.
That's something else that I was hearing them talk about, or just hearing some people speculate on the other day, is that when we see these UFOs, they're not actually moving how we experience movement, right? Like, if you were to walk from point A to point B, like, we know that you're walking there, and we could visibly see that, and we could physically like hold you while you walk there, right? Now there's some UFOologists and UFO people who are talking about that they are actually skipping through like space and time, i.e., like teleporting through space and time, and they do it so quickly because that's just how their movement works or what they've created, that it looks like what we are used to seeing, but the reality is it's not how they're actually moving. And that adds the reason, or that would allow them to do the 90-degree turns that the gentleman was just talking about, because really they're just skipping through space and time. And you got to remember, like, all everything that we know, just just in general, is because we observe it and there's a way to explain it. that doesn't mean that it's correct, or it doesn't mean that that's the only option there is for just any scientific idea. So is it possible that there's a whole other way of movement that either we just, like humans, just can't experience, or we haven't discovered, or we're just not sure how to make it work? 100%.
Of what looks to be a cylindrical shaped object flying over the countryside.
Yeah, that's weird. That last one could totally just be like some metal from an airplane that fell off.
Not a UFO, but some great footage of a meteorological phenomenon known as a crown flash.
I was gonna say that's we get those here in Utah from time to time.
Ancient or recent structures built to hide evidence of non-human material? Investigative journalist and UFO enthusiast Ross Coulthart suggested this in a recent interview.
People are going to question what I'm about to say. What if some of that is so big it can't be moved?
Is that what you're saying, Ross? Is that what you've been told?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
How
Some
big
of their
is big?
Some of their what?
Big moved. What if some of that is so big it can't be moved?
Some of their what? Shit?
Is that what you're saying, Ross? Is that what you've been told?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
How big is big?
Big. So big they built a building over it in a country outside of the United States of America.
So I assume what he's saying is, what if a crash landing or some sort of alien UFO, AF or UPA, whatever we're calling it now, advanced aerial threats, AAT, like whatever we want to call it. If they crashed and the object was so ginormous that they built something to cover it, or to hide it, or to harness it, or to research it. I mean, that makes perfect sense to me, thinking about it, right? Like, actually, like, thinking about that. The interesting thing, though, is they showed this picture. There's a new and growing theory
In a country
that the pyramids of Egypt, like, we're just seeing the tip, and it's actually a whole structure underneath that can go miles and miles down, which I don't know what implications that would have or what it means. But it's cool. It's an interesting idea.
outside of the United States of America.
¿Y eso está por donde Pedro?
Is that a bird? Oh, that's weird.
No, se está sentando. ¿Y eso está por donde Pedro?
Looks like it changes
Footage
form.
of a U.S. military certified.
You guys see that? It looks like it changes form. That might just be bad editing. I know I just said I'm not going to use it anymore, but it did look like it was a shitty edit. Sorry. Not sorry.
UFO was released at the Senate hearings earlier this year. They don't know what the object is or what it could be.
Top of the screen, there it goes, and then the camera will slew to follow it. You'll see it pop in and out of the field of view there. This is essentially all of the data we have associated with this event from some years ago.
U.S. intelligence states that over 50% of UFO witness reports from aviation employees are of the metallic orb class. Next, I have added a handful of sightings that struck me.
What? What was that? Okay, what did he just say? Hold on. U.S. intelligence states that over 50% of UFO witness reports from aviation employees are of metallic orb class. What? Metallic orbs? Bro, I haven't even heard of this. What the fuck?
Next, I have added a handful of sightings that struck me as similar.
(1993) sphere UFO instantly accelerates. Oh yeah. Line sphere UFOs. 2000. Oh yeah, what the fuck? Sphere UFO sighting over Iraq. Dude, that's pretty crazy. I don't know. I can't believe I've never heard of this.
What the uploader describes as vessels floating through his house.
Yo, we are getting some paranormal. I mean, I don't know about that. I'm not.
It also appears to phase through the wall with zero resistance.
Okay, that's
the European
weird.
Space Agency captured this scene from the surface of a comet.
What the?
With the understandably frantic and rushed recording job done here, it's easy to miss what was truly impressive about this footage. But what was almost hidden at first is clearly exposed thanks to some great tracking done by QSEG. Look close at the right-hand side of the most predominant UFO. 5 less obvious objects can be seen in alignment. They are then seen through the trees and right up until the end of the clip, where they appear to form a V shape right before flying off. CGI is a possibility here, but OP gives his opinion on why he thinks it's unlikely. Quote, I think CGI can be most likely ruled out here, since several of the UAPs are barely visible through the trees. This is very hard to achieve unless you have the trees as a static front layer. Since the trees are moving and are correctly following camera parallax, the only other option is for manual editing, which is quite hard and doesn't seem to be the case here. The recording job is also not amazing. The camera is spun around and it's hard to tell what to focus on. With most CGI work, subtlety is rare. You usually see everything the creator wanted you to see on the first viewing, with little to no obstructions. This footage, however, is quite the opposite. The profile that posted this footage also seems to be a legit personal account who sporadically posts videos of his dogs every few months. It doesn't really make much sense as to why he would randomly create high-quality CGI footage just to leave on a profile he barely pays attention to. Just to reiterate, this doesn't mean the clip is 100% legit, just that these reasons help add to it being authentic.
Yeah, dude, it's just... It's weird to think about. Because, I mean... I'm going to bring up this idea that I've always thought about UFOs, even when I was younger and a kid, and you know, because like I've watched the UFO video or the movies and all that type of stuff. And, you know, we used to laugh at, you know, people who live in very rural areas who would be, say they got abducted, right? It used to be a laughing thing. It used to be a, ho, look at this crazy guy in the woods. Ha ha ha. You know, he's going buck wild. And we would just push him out of society and be like, yeah, whatever, man. Let me guess, you got probed. But let me ask you this. We become a interplanetary species, and we observe another type of cognitive creature that we can tell that they are on a trajectory to be what we are come sometime, right? We would know, or at least understand, if like the same ideology of like how they live and be would be anywhere in the same style, meaning like, you know, your major groupings of people is probably where all the higher tech and the higher learners are, and then your more rural areas are, you know, your more, you know, hands working, blue collar, less tech individuals. You know, that's kind of how we function as a society, fairly much across the board. Even in, you know, third world countries, you're still your major cities, and, you know, maybe, and what we would consider high tech for those countries, like maybe aren't high tech to us as individuals in our country right now, but it's the same idea. I hope you're following what I'm saying, right? Like, it's still, your major cities are going to have your highest learners, highest earners, and the most tech. So if we go to a planet with this ideology of let's study, and we get to the point where we're like, okay, well, we observe everything, let's see if we can, like, let's grab one, let's fucking test it, let's test on it, let's see how different it is from us. You aren't going to go to those major cities and do it, right? You're not going to fly into New York City, New York, with millions of people on the street and levitate someone up into your fucking ship, right? No, you're going to go into some one house in the middle of Montana where there's not even electricity. It's just some person's cabin, and you're going to grab someone there, right? You're going to grab somebody there, and you're going to pull them up, and you're going to do your tests, and you're going to, you know, we're not going to understand that alien or whatever we're testing on isn't going to understand what we're saying, and it's going to be scary as fuck, and it's going to be so scary that they have to come to town and be like, guys, I got fucking abducted last night. And everyone's like, oh, there's crazy Jim. He's talking about being abducted. Like, think about it. Really think about it. And when abductions like that, when those stories like that were happening, it was in the, you know, when it really started documenting 70s, 80s, 90s, right? Look how far our technology has gone from just the 1980s, right? I'm 30. My parents were born in the late 70s and early 80s. Okay. A lot of you probably still have parents who are alive with around the same age. That they didn't even have cell phones, right? And I'm not saying this being like, oh, they didn't have, like, we have advanced so far, but we're so just comfortable with the tech that we don't even, it's hard to see it in from a perspective of like actually understanding what's going on. Our technology is so crazy. Okay? Think how much more crazy it's going to be in 20 years. People are going to be like, "Oh my god, they had to carry around a fucking brick of metal and battery that could potentially catch on fire in their pocket." That's crazy. Um Sorry, I just got a work email. Um it's gonna be mind-numbingly different, right? I'm sure we all have parents that see certain things in technology, right? Like trying to explain to my mom like AI and like just if I try to talk to, I've never talked to her about ChatGPT. If I did, she would not understand a fucking word I was saying. And that's going on right now. So 20 years from now, when we all have live-in robots that cook and clean for us, and we can't even run a fucking washing machine anymore because it's programmed just for the AI to run it, and our houses can tell us exactly every little thing about us, and when you pee in the toilet, it will be like, hey, you're short on these minerals, and then it'll produce a vitamin for you and all this type of shit, right? It's gonna be crazy. So think of the alien species that's visiting us from wherever they're visiting us from, how fast their technology advances. So where they were 30 years ago having to abduct us and test in areas of non-developed or less developed, now they don't give a fuck because their cloaking or their ability is so much better to hide in plain sight, but we're still grasping little things here and there. But I think it's because they just don't care anymore. It's like, what are you guys going to do? Stop us? Okay, well, we'll just fly 13,000 miles per hour and then take a right turn, and then you'll never find us again. And that's even if it's, I'm pretty positive that a lot of these things we're observing now aren't like man-crafted, right? Or not man-crafted, driven by something. I think they're probably drones, right? So, I don't know. Tangent aside, it's just crazy.
Here you can see UFOs pulsing with light and then fading into the darkness.
Why if it's moving so fast?
Yeah. Like, there's no way I can explain that.
That's the UFO.
It kind of looks like a hospital heart rate monitor in the sky.
It's a UFO.
5 pulses were recorded before the video ends. And some of the biggest UFO alien news of all time that, in my opinion, didn't receive nearly enough coverage. It's been disclosed that, quote, non-human life has been recovered from crashed crafts.
If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
When you say crash retrieval, what do you mean?
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will. It's probably not the right parlance, but no kidding, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
It's crazy.
UFO caught from the cockpit of a small aircraft. I've also added sharpening and stabilization to better see the object.
Not a big craft.
Video of what looks to be a triangle UFO sitting stationary over a rural area in Ontario, Canada.
It's just hovering in place. What is that? Look at the lights all around it.
I made sure to stabilize the footage so we can get a better look at the activity going on in the center of the craft. The footage is around 10 years old, so before the use of drones really took off. The uploader's description states, "Don't got much to say about this video other than when my dad originally sent it to me. I felt like it had to be a UFO, and there's nothing else that seems to explain it. Canada is notorious for sightings, and I myself have seen a few. This was taken way before drones were being used regularly, and I'd say the video is easily 10 years old." Pulled from a US news channel, footage of an object instantly accelerating over the city of Boston.
Oh, what the fuck? Just on the news? See, that's another thing that I've thought about for a long time is you know, how many are actually captured on video and we're just not, like, we just never noticed. I bet it's way more, because it's not like people are really thinking about it every moment of the day, you know? I don't know, it's crazy.
By some to be a camera glitch that caused the stream to freeze. The explanation was quickly debunked by the uploader, who shows us here that the rest of the world is still in motion whilst the UFO is paused. No UFOs here, but some amazing footage of what it's like to fly a plane through a snowstorm.
Fuck that. That's crazy.
A U.S. news host describes an advanced tech defense field that is thought to surround some UFOs with an undetectable bubble, which scrambles the brains of those curious enough to wander too close.
We got a call from this guy who's a tenured Stanford medical school professor. He comes on and he's like, 11 years ago, the U.S. government reached out to me because I'm an expert on head injuries, on brain injuries, traumatic brain injuries, and they had all these court cases from families of U.S. servicemen, over 100, who'd been killed by UFOs. So at nuclear missile bases in the upper Midwest, for example, nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, nuclear-powered submarines are all getting buzzed by these objects. And in a number of cases, these things have landed on military bases, including famously in Germany, in West Germany in the 70s.
I wanted to give more details about what incident he was referencing here. However, I was unable to find the case. He could have possibly been getting it mixed up with the Rendlesham Forest or Bentwaters incident, but I'm unsure. If you know, please leave a comment.
And servicemen have approached them, and they approach and they get traumatic brain injury, or they're killed. And he studied their brains.
There are numerous other reports of encounters with UFOs ending with the instant death of the witnesses. But due to limited information and possible redactions, the exact causes aren't disclosed. Deep sea drone operator Chase Bet.
I wonder if it's possible. Well, I mean, anything's possible, but I wonder if what's allowing these things to propel, if it's not the dimensional travel thing, and even if it is a dimensional travel thing, I wonder if it fucks with the frequencies around it, or emits frequencies to like manipulate magnetic waves in the air that we don't see or can't observe, and it does it at such a high velocity that if anything was around it, it would just fucking, you know, basically, lack of a better term, shake your internal body to death. And that's what, and if not to death, then, you know, traumatic brain damage.
With over 5,000 hours experience in the field, captures footage of what he can only describe as a USO. Chase was interviewed about the sighting, where he was quizzed on what makes this footage out of the ordinary.
Why is it significant that something, mechanical would be down that deep?
It seems like it'd be easy to put a drone or something 5,600 feet underwater until you really understand what's behind doing something like that. And to have something moving down there under its own power, the battery power would be immense. Also, this was tetherless. Without a tether,
What am I?
It would have no human control.
The look, shape, and movement of the object is enough to rule out any sea life. Its speed also rules out any...
It would have no human control.
The look, shape, and movement of the object is enough to rule out any sea life. Its speed also rules out any junk/inanimate object that may be drifting around down there.
How do we know this is not organic? This isn't a fish or something like that?
Well, the video footage, albeit not the clearest, it's pretty clear to see that it's not a fish. We spend thousands and thousands of hours looking underwater and around these areas. We know what the fish look like, and this pretty clearly isn't fish. Lots of people that have seen the video have 30, 40 years in the industry, and they're saying, well, it's not a fish, but I don't know what it is. It's really out of the bounds of what I think we have technology of making right now. If somebody gave me a $10 million budget and said, make this thing, I don't think it's possible.
Chase goes on to talk about the encounters other experts working in the industry have had with USOs. I have left a link to the full interview in the description. Definitely worth a watch. A viscous smoke-like web moves over a lake in Australia. A convincing explanation is yet to be given. Some dismissed it as a smudge on a window. Here, I track the position to show the slow distortion/spread of the formation.
It's weird. I mean, UFO is a subject that I could talk about for hours at a time. It really is. It's I'm trying to gather my thoughts. It's interesting because it's confirmed it's happening from the people that run everything, right? The people who tell us yes or no are telling us yes. And telling us that they're here, they've been involved. Like, it's no longer if they are, if they aren't, it's happening. And what Grush is doing is, I can't imagine the fear that he's going through doing what he's doing. You know, for what you don't know is he whistle blew that there's things going on that he wasn't okay with that revolve around this subject, and is protected under law to do so and to bring it up and not be prosecuted. And quite frankly, the opposite, to prosecute people who are abusing systems put into place in the government to help more individuals, to help themselves and not others. So he's going through trial now and doing interview after interview, talking like he's only allowed to say what he's allowed to say, and people are watching him like a hawk, because if he messes up, then, you know, they can put him away, and which I'm sure a lot of people in the government want to do right now, because really he's sharing one of the biggest secrets, and one of the biggest secrets that we've had for forever. And I think that there's lots of implications with this, because, you know, I'm a firm believer that UFOs and aliens and other intelligence have been involved with us since the beginning of humanity. I just do. And that's, you know, we can talk about that on a different video, but if you look at just our past 50, 60 years, after Roswell happened, we had a huge tech boom. And when Bob Lazar came out and started talking about how he was reverse engineering spacecraft to learn about it, you know, right around the same time we had a huge tech boom again. So to me, and if you read history of other countries too, like it's very common. Like there'll be like a UFO story, then all of a sudden a huge tech boom. So I think humans are really good at, once they get their hands on something, we can use our mathematics and science to at least try and understand it and then apply it to, you know, what we're doing. And I think that's happened a lot in the past 30, 40 years. I think that there's teams that have existed for a long time where their whole entire job is to search the planet for crashed, destroyed, whatever you want to call it, UFOs, and to gather them like a resource, bring them back to wherever they are, and reverse engineer them to try and learn from it. And that's how we're becoming more and more technologically advanced. It's not actually, and I'm sure this isn't in every case, but you know, a lot of it is things that have already been invented by other species of intelligent life that we are taking from and learning from. It's just, there's so much that goes into the UFO world, and it's so crazy. And you know, it's, you know, that poster that says "I want to believe." I think it needs to be changed to "We all have to believe now," because it's not even the powers to be. It's not an if anymore. Just remember that. It's no longer an if they are here. It's yes, they're here. What are they? Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and I will catch you on the next one. Peace.